Hello students, this is Mitali Das from KV Lekhapani. I hope you all are fine in this very critical situation. And today I am here to discuss the very first chapter of your Honeydew book, and that is the best Christmas present in the world. And this chapter was written by Michael Morpurgo. So let us begin. But before we go to the depth of the chapter, let us know a little bit about the writer. So as I have already told you, the name of the writer is Michael Morpurgo. He was born in the year 1943. He is a well-known English author, poet and a playwright. So who is a playwright now? A playwright is someone who writes plays or dramas. Morpurgo is very well known for his famous novel War Horse, which was published in the year 1982. He has also written many other books like Long Way from Home, Friend and Foe, Little Foxes, Why the Whales Came, etc. A very notable thing that we can see in his works is that the theme of his works are mostly on the relationship between nature and character, the environmental issues, the relationship between the old and the young. He also shows how the enemies come together and join hands during the time of wars. And this theme we are going to come across when we will be learning this chapter. So the next thing that we are going to discuss is the characters of the chapter. So the first character is of Jim Macpherson. So Jim Macpherson is the protagonist of the chapter. But who is a protagonist now? What is the meaning of protagonist? A protagonist is the leading character of any story or any film or any novel. So Jim was the captain of the British Army during the First World War. So do you know the timeline of the First World War? It began in 1914 and it ended in 1918. The war was fought between Germany and Britain. The character of Jim was a young and generous man who was very dedicated towards his job. Before he had joined the army, he used to work as a school teacher in Dorset. So Dorset is a place in the country of England. He was very loving of his wife, Connie Macpherson. So what's the name of his wife? It's Connie Macpherson. So Jim Macpherson sacrifices his life in the war, and therefore he could never return to his wife and he could never write any more letters to her. So after learning the character of Jim Macpherson, let us learn about the character of his wife, and that is Connie Macpherson. So she is a lady of 101 years old and she is mentally stressed because her husband has not yet returned from the war. She has been dealing with severe pain of separation from her husband and still waits for him. She also suffers from burns when a fire breaks out in her house. So we will know about her a little more when we will be dealing with the depth of the chapter. So the next character that we are going to discuss is about Hans Wolf. And Hans Wolf is the captain of the German troop. And he is from Dusseldorf, a city in the western Germany. He used to play the cello in an orchestra before he had joined the army. Have you ever seen a cello? So the cello is a kind of musical instrument that you can see in the picture. Hans Wolf is very amiable and very friendly, and we can see that because in the chapter he tries to make friendship with the English troop, who is actually their enemy in the war. So after getting familiar with the characters of the story, let us know the setting of the story. But before that, what is a setting? So the setting is the place or the surroundings where an event takes place. So it talks about the background of the story. And the setting of this particular story is on the day of Christmas in the year 1914. And it was during the First World War. And in the story, we also come across the descriptions of the battlefields and also of how the English troops celebrate Christmas with the enemy. And who is the enemy? The German troop. So now, let us know a little more about the chapter. So this chapter, The Best Christmas Present in the World, it actually talks about the brotherhood and universal geniality. So do you know the meaning of geniality? Geniality means friendliness. This short story shows how desperately the soldiers in the battlefield want peace to be prevailed in the world. So the soldiers, they want peace in the world. And they also seek the company of the families, but are helpless. So these soldiers who are in the battlefield, they want to go back to their family, but see, they are very helpless. So the short story also talks about how both the troops celebrated Christmas Day in the battlefield, and it also shows that the families of the soldier, on the other hand, desperately wait for the soldiers to return. Students, I hope you all are enjoying the chapter. So let us continue. So the next thing that we are going to discuss is the significant points of the chapter. And while we discuss the points, I hope you will also get hold of the storyline. And here, I want you to be more attentive. So the first point that we are going to discuss is the roll top desk. And in the beginning of the story, the author finds a roll top desk. And it was old, and the roll top desk was in a very poor condition. The roll top desk was made of oak wood, and one leg of the roll top desk was very clumsily mended, and it had many scorch marks. What do you mean by scorch marks? It means burnt marks. And as all other desks were out of his budget, the author decided that he will buy this particular roll top desk, which was actually not in a very good condition. So he decided that he will buy it and he will repair it by himself. And therefore, he started to work on it on Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas. So the next thing that we are going to discuss is the letter. So here I want to say that this letter plays a very, very important role in this story. So while repairing the desk, the author or the narrator tried to pull out all the drawers because he had to mend it up. And the last drawer was very, very tightly stuck. And with great force, he tried to open the drawer. And when he finally opened the last drawer, he saw something. What did he see? He saw that there was another smaller drawer within that. And to his surprise, he found that in that smaller drawer there was another tin box, and it was written as Jim's last letter received January 25, 1915. So these lines were written on the top of the tin box. To be buried with me when time comes. So this was the wish of the receiver, I mean. So the receiver wanted that this letter should be buried with her when she dies. So the author tried to open the box, and then he revealed that there was an envelope where the address was written. What was the address? The address was Mrs. Jim Macpherson, 12 Copper Beeches, Bridport, Dorset. And it was dated as January 26, 1914, just a day after the Christmas. So this letter was written just a day after the Christmas. And when did the receiver receive the letter? She received it on January 25th. So coming to the next slide, let us discuss the next point, and that is Jim and Connie. So here the author tried to open the letter which was written by Jim. Why? Because he was very curious like what was written in the letter. And he found that Jim Macpherson was the captain in the British Army, and he wrote this letter to his wife. Do you remember the name of his wife? It is Connie Macpherson. And The letter described the wonderful Christmas Day in the year 1914, when the British and German army on the border had made merry together, keeping aside the war for the spirit of festivity. So, in this festival of Christmas, what the troops did, they forgot the war, they kept it aside, and then they tried to celebrate the Christmas. Thank you so much, students, for being so patient here. Now let's proceed to the next slide, and that is remarkable moments. So here the story takes us to the battlefield where the German and the English troops were inside the trenches. So do you know what trenches mean? Trenches are long and narrow ditches. So as you can see in the picture, the soldiers used to hide in the trenches and then they attack their enemies. So in the letter, Jim mentions that someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches and wishing them Happy Christmas. So what happened is that someone from the English troop saw that an army from the German troop was waving a white flag. What does white flag symbolize? White flag symbolizes peace. So here what happened? The English troops, after they saw that someone was waving a white flag and wishing them Happy Christmas, they also tried to wish them back. And Jim first thought that it was a trick by the German troop, but then he later realized that the German troop genuinely wanted to celebrate Christmas Day with the English troop. And he also saw that the Germans carried wine and sausages with them, and both the officers, Hans Wolf and Jim McPherson, tried to have a conversation with each other. They first introduced each other, and while having the conversation, Jim McPherson came to know that Hans Wolf actually can speak very good English, but he had never been to England at any point of time. So here comes the question that where did Hans Wolf learn to speak such good English? So he learned to speak good English when he was in school and also by reading books. And Hans Wolf also let Jim McPherson know that Thomas Hardy is his favorite author. Next thing that we are going to discuss is the celebration. So as you all know that both the troops were celebrating Christmas, they got along very well and they had made friendship with each other. They were making merry, they were laughing and talking, drinking and eating. They were also exchanging carols. So what is the meaning of carol? Carol is a kind of a religious song or chorus. So it is a kind of song. And here Jim and Hans Wolf also shared the wonderful cake which was prepared by Connie. And Jim told Connie in the letter that Hans Wolf considered the marzipan as the best that he had ever tasted. And Jim also actually shared the same view. But what is a marzipan now? Marzipan is a sweet yellow or white paste which is made of ground almonds, sugar, egg white, and it is also used, it is used to coat the cake. It is used to cover the cake. And here Jim also said that it was quite ironical that they both agreed on everything even though they were enemies. They both thought that they had never celebrated the Christmas in a better way. So the next point that we are going to discuss is war or football. War versus football. So both the troops played football and they dumped their grey coats in piles to make goalposts. As you all know that the setting of the story is the battlefield, so therefore you will not find goalposts there. So the troops, they tried to make goalposts by dumping their grey coats in piles. And both the officers, Jim McPherson and Hans Wolf, cheered and clapped for both the teams while having a conversation. So here Hans Wolf remarked that football matches are a good way to resolve the war. Hans Wolf says this very important point, and he was actually of the view that all the problems can be resolved by playing football. Football matches are better because no one loses his life, no children become orphan, no wife become an widow. It brings peace, unlike wars. So this is also representative of the idea that wars can only be destructive. It destroys peace and harmony of the world. Jim mentions in the letter that the German wins the match. So now let us move to the next slide, that is the burnt house. So students, after the author read the letter, he decided that he should hand over the letter to the suitable owner, and therefore he tried to follow the address that was given on the envelope. And when he reached the given address, he saw that it was a burnt house. So there was a fire outbreak there. And after making certain queries, he got to know that Connie Macpherson, who was the owner of the house, was inside the house during the fire outbreak, and she was severely injured. So as she was severely injured, she was taken to a nearby nursing house. And now let us go to the next slide, that is Connie Macpherson. So after he got to know that she was in the nursing home, the author found Burlington House Nursing Home very easily, where Mrs. Connie was kept for her treatment. The author discovered that Connie was in a confused state then, and she keeps forgetting things and finds it very difficult to recognize people. She was of 101 years old, and Mrs. Connie was kept in a conservatory. So she was kept in a different room. So when Jim said hello to Mrs. Connie, she looked at him vacantly, without a sign of recognition. So the author wished her Merry Christmas and handed over the box to her. So when Connie saw the box, her face lit up with happiness. The author tried to explain how he got the letter, but Connie seemed to be unmindful of it. So when the author was trying to explain how he received the box, she was not being able to hear to whatever the author was saying. She did not listen to him. And the narrator saw that Connie's eyes were filled with tears because Connie thought that it was her husband who has returned after the war. She misinterpreted the author to be Jim. She thought that it was her husband. The narrator could sense Connie's happiness on seeing him on that day because Jim had promised that he would return on Christmas Day. So Connie was very happy as she thought Jim has kept his promise and considered that it was the best Christmas present in the whole world. So here I assume that you might have understood the story. So now let us move to the next slide, that is the significance of the title. So students, do you think the title is significant? Yes, the title is very perfect for the story. Because for Mrs. Macpherson, there couldn't have been any other gift who would have given her more happiness than this gift. And this gift is very special for her because she got her husband back from the war and with her at the time of Christmas Day. And as you all know that she had been waiting for him and she was very anxious of his safety. She desperately wanted him back, and then today, on the day of Christmas, he has finally returned back according to her, even though it was the author. So the next thing that we are going to discuss is the thematic value of the story. So the theme of the story. The theme of the story is very important for all of us. And it says that the war brings destructions. It destroys the peace and the harmony of the world. So do you remember who made this remark in the story? Yes, it was Hans Wolf, the captain of the German troop. So, because of the war, as you have already seen in the story, Jim could never return to his wife. And his wife, in spite of being so old, desperately keeps waiting for him. So, dear students, we are proceeding towards the end of the lesson. But before bidding goodbye, I want to discuss the entire story in a nutshell. So, as the author or the narrator finds the roll-top desk in a junk shop, and while repairing it, he finds the letter which was written by Jim to his wife. And in the letter, Jim describes about how he celebrated Christmas Day in the year of 1914 during the First World War. And he also describes that Hans Wolf, the captain of the German troop, was of the view that wars are very destructive and the problems of the world should be solved by playing football. And after reading the letter, the author decides to give it back to Connie. the receiver of the letter. And when he goes to the given address, he got to know that she was in the nursing home as she was severely injured by the fire outbreak. And when the author handed over the letter, Connie mistook that it was her husband who has returned back from the war, and she considers the return of her husband as the best Christmas present in the world. So students, this is the end of the chapter. I hope I could help you in understanding the chapter. And before going, there are certain questions that you are meant to solve. So there are 5 questions. I hope you will be able to solve it. Thank you so much. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.